Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you all have had a great start to 2019, and welcome to another episode of This Month in Competitive Overwatch. If you're new here, this is my monthly series where I round up all of the latest news in the competitive Overwatch community and present it to you in what is hopefully an easy-to-digest video. In this video, I'll update you on where all of the Contenders regions are at right now, and then I'll talk about all the developments of the Overwatch League. I highly recommend that you watch the Contenders portion, especially since this season is coming down to the wire. But if you don't care, I'll leave timestamps to all the different portions in the pinned comment like I usually do. Without any further delay, let's get started. Starting off in South America, this region still looks to be base tryhards to lose. After a perfect 20-0 group stage, base tryhards, formerly Brazil Gaming House, have stayed at the top of the region despite losing Alamau to the Uprising and Claws to Uprising Academy. However, I feel like I have to give a shout out to Caverna Esports, who are second in their group. Caverna actually got 6th place in Contenders Trials, and because I assume Life Snakes and the project had to withdraw, Caverna got in, and then proceeded to go 4-1, which is honestly an incredible turnaround. On the other side, looking for Team Overwatch League has also gone 5-0, and is probably the best challenger in the base tryhards at this point. However, keep an eye out for Asurus Gaming, who are also 4-1. The two-time second place finishers will fight to keep their streak of getting wrecked by base tryhards in the finals alive. The South American Contenders playoffs will begin on January 8th, with base tryhards versus Fury and Asurus Gaming versus the Suquinho Nation. On the 12th, Caverna will take on Up Gaming, and looking for Team Overwatch League will face X10 Esports. Broadcast GG even does English broadcasts, so tune in if you can. Australian Contenders is in a very similar situation as South America. Even though Sydney Drop Bears has lost Trill to Team Envy and Punk to Uprising Academy, they've gone through a perfect 20-0 season, and once again, it is completely their region to lose. By the way, this is like one of the weirdest regions ever, just looking at the standings. I mean, look at Mindfreak getting a playoff spot by going 1-4. And on the other side, we have 3 teams that went 4-1. Like, I don't think I've ever seen that in Contenders before. The chances are so low that the Mavericks beat Heist, Heist beats Order, and Order beats the Mavericks. It's hard to tell who's really on top, which makes things exciting in that group. Anyways, it's looking like SDB's greatest challenger will be Order, who was a semi-finalist last season and are coming in with an impressive plus 15 map differential. However, expect Athletico Esports, Heist Gaming Club, and the Melbourne Mavericks to have something to say as well, as all of these teams have just one loss in the group stages. Australian playoffs will begin on January 6th when the Sydney Drop Bears take on Breakaway Esports and Heist goes up against Blank. The next day, Mindfreak will try to take on Order, while Athletico will go against the Mavericks in what is sure to be a good match. Let's go over to the Pacific Division next, where once again it's looking likely that Talon Esports will be able to defend their title. Their only 2 lost maps came from a 5-map game against Nova in Week 1, and since then they haven't lost a beat. While Xavier Esports, who are currently in 2nd place, took a 4-0 loss against Talon, they're hoping to get their revenge in the playoffs. Looking at the other group, at the moment, it's the Hong Kong Attitude who are standing at the top, though it is interesting that their one loss was the Cyclone Coupling, who have just a +1 map differential. There's a bunch of potential here, but also signs of struggle, as their only 4-0 this season has been against the 0-5 Giant Esports. Sitting in 2nd place in this region is Global Pantheon Korea, who us Western fans might remember as the team that Kefri is currently playing for. Pacific Division playoffs will begin on January 10th with Talon Esports versus Cyclone Coupling, and then GE Pantheon versus Nova Esports. The next day we'll have Xavier Esports versus Phoenix, and Hong Kong Attitude versus Grandeur. The Pacific Division is known for having a lot of variation in their team compositions, so if you're tired of GOATs, I highly recommend tuning into these games. Moving on to China next, we're actually a bit further along than in other regions, as the first round of playoffs have already occurred, and since Lucky Future Zenith, the winners of Seasons 1 and 2, were dismantled for Overwatch League, China has been fun to watch as teams battle for the open throne. So far, at least, there haven't been any surprises, as the higher seed beat the lower seed in all 4 games with a score of 3-0. As of right now, the favorites are the one winner, who blew through the group stage with a perfect 20-0 map differential, which is something that not even Lucky Future Zenith were ever able to achieve. While LGD has gotten the credit for meeting Lucky Future Zenith in the finals, the one winner has quietly taken them to 5 maps in the semifinals twice. If the one winner had gotten a little luckier on seeding, they might be the premier Chinese team instead of LGD. The hidden advantage to that is that the one winner wasn't hit nearly as hard by Overwatch League as LGD was, which may put them at the top. Team CC, the academy team for the Dragons, was hyped up a lot this season, but they haven't been quite as dominant as people hoped. However, there is still a lot of hope surrounding this team, with CO, formerly known as Five King, Jiquiren, the main tank formerly of Miraculous Youngster, and I Eat You Up, an Australian DPS formerly of Blank Esports, all being sources of a lot of hype. On the other side, Flag Gaming is looking extremely strong, going 5-0 themselves. They're solid all across the board, with one of the best tank lines in the region, with Over and MG, who Dragons fans might recognize. They also have a great DPS player in Jason, and a strong support line in Coldest and Mika. This is a team that has been together since Season 1 as Team Scotty's gift. After gaining some key acquisitions in tank and DPS, Flag Gaming looks poised to make a run at the crown. Meanwhile, LGD doesn't want you to forget about them just yet. After getting pretty heavily poached by Overwatch League, losing Gushue, Eileen, Onlywish, and Shy to X6 Gaming, many doubted their ability to get a second place podium yet again. However, their ability to scout is apparently almost as impressive. Despite a few hiccups, LGD is in great form and look to keep their spot as a perennial power in Chinese Overwatch. In my mind, the 4 teams remaining are the 4 best teams in China right now, and I can't wait to see how this season concludes. January 12th will see the semifinals, which is T1W versus LGD, and Flag Gaming versus Team CC. The next day, the 2 winners will play each other for the championship. Korea has actually been pretty incredible this season, and it hasn't gotten anywhere close to how people thought it would. In Group A, Runaway stands at the top by a lot. After losing their entire roster to Overwatch League, many thought Runaway was finished as a top-tier competitor. But if Runaway is known for anything, it's their fantastic scouting, and I think this proves that. Their greatest rival in the group is MVP Space, one of the few Korean teams who went relatively untouched for Overwatch League scouting. As far as the rest of the group, WGS and Geekstar will stay alive, as O2's dismemberment proved too much for them and Blossom is put back into the trials yet again. On the other side, Element Mystic has been looking almost as strong. Despite losing a lot of players to Overwatch League themselves, Star DPS Sparkle is back after missing a season due to account sharing. After a very strong 4 weeks, Element Mystic seemingly unreasonably ended up falling to the floundering Meta Athena, which puts their consistency and dominance as a team in question, even if Meta Athena acquired Who Are You. This opens the door for veteran teams like GC Busan Wave and Stormquake, who by the way now houses Kaiser, the former superstar main tank for Runaway, to take the top spot. And Kongdu Panthera is also there. After starting off 2-0, KDP just hasn't been able to stand up to the top 3 teams in their group. And can we talk about Gen G for a second? The Seoul Dynasty Academy team was not very highly rated at the start of the season when their roster was announced, and they haven't been able to reverse those doubts. They are a prime example of why Academy doesn't necessarily equal good. However, maybe since they're guaranteed a spot next season, they're putting time into young prospects to try and grow them? I'm not sure. I hope that's what they're doing. Anyways, the Korean quarterfinals will start at 11 PM EST on January 4th and have Stormquake vs MVP Space, followed by Runaway vs Kongdu Panthera, in a rematch of last year's finals with nearly all new players. I think that'll be interesting. The next day we'll have GC Busan vs WGS, followed by Geekstar vs Element Mystic. Moving over to Europe, this season has seen many new faces take center stage. Trials teams like Shoes Money Crew and HSL Esports, who I must say actually came in 5th place in Trials and ended up getting in because Eagle Gaming disbanded, have each made it to the playoffs. The 2 top teams are also new to being at the top. In Group A, it's the Samsung Morning Stars, an Italian team who, yes, is owned by the South Korean conglomerate company Samsung. After acquiring the Contenders spot that was formerly owned by Snakes, this team that used to house fully Italian players have shifted over to a more fully European roster. And it has paid tremendous dividends, as they are the only team this season to go 5-0. On the other side, we have OnePoint, who have made it to the top after being a quarterfinalist last season. The biggest change to help this team between last season and this one were the acquisitions of tank duo Superpluke and Get Amazed, as well as the DPS Hardest, who many of you who keep up with the scene may remember of all being formerly from Eagle Gaming, who of course won last season of Contenders Europe. They have used this synergy to just roll through most of their opponents this season. However, they are 4-1, which brings me to what I think is the most exciting part about Contenders Europe, and it's that there are so many teams that have a shot at the title this season. You have the star power of Team Giganti, who continue to attract top-tier talent in Zappos and Zupe, while pumping out Overwatch League graduates. You have the high ceiling of Angry Titans with star names like Onigod. You have the academy power of the British Hurricane and the patented Maygoats from Windstrike to worry about. There's so many possible winners here, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. The European playoffs will begin on January 8th, with 1 Point versus HSL and Giganti versus the British Hurricane. The next day, Samsung Morning Stars will take on Shu's Money Crew, followed by Windstrike versus the Angry Titans. Finally, we come to North America. In Group A, the Fusion University have managed to stay on top, while Atlanta Academy have shown just how great the core of last night's leftovers can be with the support an academy can give. Meanwhile, First Generation has been impressive this season, showing a lot of veteran patience and ability, while Uprising Academy is flashy with stars like Fusions and Asking, but unfortunately will often end up fizzling out. Their success will largely depend upon whether they can live up to their potential. On the other side, XL2 was on the top despite a little hiccup, and picking up Logix was obviously a great move. Second Wind was ridiculously impressive through their first 4 games, but losing their main shot caller Karkar seems to have slowed their momentum. Will they be able to get back on track, or will it be Energy or Envy coming out on top, who have both experienced an incredible amount of growth over the season? The playoffs will begin on January 10th with all of the quarterfinal matches, starting off with Fusion University versus Team Envy, then Second Wind versus First Generation, XL2 Academy versus Uprising Academy, and finally Atlanta Academy versus NRG Esports. By the way, if you thought this was light on the details, that's because I was originally writing so much that I just decided to make it its own video. You can expect a casual's guide to the Contenders North American playoffs, where I'll talk about everything in much more depth, so I hope you're looking forward to it. The Boston Uprising added Alamau to the team this month. The Brazilian pickup impressed many in his Overwatch World Cup performance and should provide a boost to the backline that has been heavily criticized over the offseason. The Dallas Fuel added Zachary, who is their quote-unquote flex DPS player. This has been met with some confusion by the community, as Zachary played hitscan for Fusion University, but his talent cannot be denied, nor his ability to play a lot of heroes. It'll be interesting to see how the Fuel use him. The Florida Mayhem made a lot of high-level moves. Robert Yip was announced as a new performance coach for the Mayhem, and John Cracombe is now the new president for the team. Maybe these moves mean a shift in direction for the way the Mayhem will handle their own team. The Gladiators made a few interesting moves this month. First of all, Panker was finally signed to the team on a 2-way contract. While he will be sitting behind Roar, it is nice that he finally got some recognition. This team has also expanded their coaching staff a lot, as John Galt is on as an assistant coach, PCC is on as a performance coach, and Shibalnu as an official Korean to English translator. Bishu can now rest easy, at least out of game. The New York Excelsior have added IMT as a new assistant coach. He comes on to help out Pavane and Zet this season. This month, the Shock made a huge move when they got Striker from the Boston Uprising. This boosts their already scary DPS line to a crazy level, like Striker was considered one of the best TPS in the entire league. They've also expanded their staff, adding 2 new analysts and Mercy and Aligned. The Seoul Dynasty announced the signing of Fitz, who is a relatively unknown flex DPS player who recently played in Contenders Trials with Go and Water S. Have the Dynasty found their diamond in the rough? Our final 2 expansion teams finally revealed themselves as well. The DC Justice are a team mixed with North American and Korean talent, as well as a few promising Overwatch League veterans in Jonas, Otto, and Guido. However, there are some questions about their choices and about their budget, and there are already signs of some internal struggle. The Vancouver Titans are bringing Runaway to the Overwatch League, as the whole team that won Contenders Korea Season 2 will be competing together here, and I could not be more excited about it. To hear my extended thoughts on these teams, where they came from, who's on them, and how good I think they'll do, check out the iCard showing up now, as well as my Overwatch League preseason power rankings. It's also worth mentioning that the Overwatch League recently introduced the Player Discipline Tracker, your one-stop shop to know which Overwatch League players have received punishments for breaking Blizzard TOS. With the launch of this tracker, several Overwatch League players have received punishments that will start at the beginning of Overwatch League. As of right now, the players on this list are Guangzhou Charge Flex Support Rise, fined $1,000 for account sharing. Hangzhou Spark DPS Crystal, banned 1 game for boosting. Florida Mayhem Flex DPS Apply, banned 2 games for boosting. Boston Uprising DPS Color Hex, also banned 2 games for account boosting. San Francisco Shock Flex Support Violet, banned 2 games for boosting. Toronto Defiant Flex Support Neko, banned 3 games for account selling and obstructing investigation. And finally, LA Gladiators Support Reaper, banned 5 games for throwing and toxicity. And that'll do it. As far as next month, I'm expecting January to be slow as teams grind for the beginning of Overwatch League Season 2, but all Contender seasons will be coming to an end this month. If you haven't watched Contenders, I highly suggest that you do now, as these do-or-die games are some of the best that you can get. Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments, and if you're right, I will heart the comments to make sure that people can see it. If you like this video and want to see more, make sure to leave a like and subscribe as I try to make competitive Overwatch content at least once a week. Until next time though, that's all from me. Don't get tilted.